Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Inside Marketing. And today I am joined by Faye Shilston, who is the marketing director at Whisky 1901, in a very intriguing background. Thank you very much for sitting there, Faye. It's very exciting what you have behind you. I think we're going to have a really good discussion today. And it's lovely to have you from a corner of the industry that we haven't really had kind of anybody on the podcast from. And I think I'm really excited today to get into what marketing looks like in your world. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and big welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm actually really excited to be here and discuss all things marketing from two very different backgrounds, and hopefully they do align in a marketing way. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what experience I've had and how it's led me to where I am today.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, the journeys of the people who now sit at the top of the tree in marketing are hugely interesting to us and to our listeners as well. And I think that's what people often find most fascinating, where the people who come up with the marketing strategies nowadays and some of the brands that we're very that are very well known or that a lot of us will come into contact with, where did they start? How did that passion for marketing ignite? And sometimes that's very much at the beginning of one's career, and sometimes that comes much later. So it'll be really interesting to dive into how that unfurled for you. So yeah. Oh, as always, really looking forward to getting into the discussion. I think we'll have a great chat. Um, we've kind of already just given a sneak peek there, but it would be great if you could give us that journey through your inside marketing. So, where did you start? A bit about your role now, perhaps, and kind of, was it always marketing, or was it something else, and then you kind of transferred in? That'd be fantastic to hear about.
Of course. So I started my degree in Leeds, and actually it was in quantity surveying. That was actually my passion. Had nothing to do with marketing. And then the recession hit in 2008. And my
Mm.
dad worked for Mace at the time, and he said, "Get out of it, get a normal degree that you can be hireable afterwards." So I thought I'd just go into business. And it covered consultancy, business environment, marketing, website design. And I was like, okay, I enjoy this. I clearly have a passion for it.
Yeah.
Carried on with the degree. Luckily enough, I finished with an honours, so I was top of the class for that year,
Oh,
which was
congrats.
really exciting, which proved that I was enjoying the topics I was studying.
Mm.
And then after graduating in 2013, I got a job offer in the mining industry, which everyone thinks, how the hell did you land in mining? And when I say mining, it was from the top to the bottom. So it's treating, cutting,
Wow.
polishing. It's the whole step, each by hand, not by machine. So we had hundreds of thousands of gemstones cut by real people over decades and decades of years. And
Wow.
I started in customer services, so I was literally at the bottom after graduating. And I
Mm.
learnt the hard way. It was a bit like doing The Apprentice. Everything had a red pen and it was redo. And it was
Yeah.
like, God, if I get through this first year, I should be okay.
Yeah.
And it felt like forever to get to that first year.
Yeah.
And then it kept progressing, and I kept doing more projects, and I kept landing bigger clients. So the two main
Mm.
clients I was managing was QVC internationally and David
Yeah.
Yurman, which is the American brand that's kind of taken America by storm in terms of celebrities and influencers. But because I was getting the back end of it, it was really interesting to see how these stones started from really rough pieces and then went into these $1,000 pieces of jewellery that kind of nobody knew the real price and value of what it started from to the bottom. And that's where my
Wow.
marketing kind of hat switched on. I thought, God, this started off at $20 and they're now selling this for £4,000. How did we get to that kind of
Yeah.
value at the end? What
Value
kind of
perception.
marketing? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
personally, I don't wear jewellery because of it. It actually did the opposite to me because I know the real price of jewellery.
How
And it kind of
interesting.
scares me actually how much kind of profit margins put on jewellery.
Wow. What an introduction to kind of consumerism and value perception and marketing, as you say,
Yeah, it's
literally an object and the detachment that from, where that comes from and what the cost is and yeah, the insane amounts that people are prepared to pay for something that, looks very similar to this thing here, which is worth 1% of the,
indeed,
cost.
indeed, it's very
Yeah.
clever marketing, which kind of, really switched me on into that side of the world. And we started doing
Mm.
projects. So my first major project was the Ostro stone in the Natural History Museum. So it's still sitting
Wow.
there. It's a stone that's worth. 2 kilograms in weight. It is sitting right in front of the museum. Big
Wow.
blue topaz. It's amazing. But we had a party of 600 people. We did it off the back of Free's Art Fair. We did it with
Wow.
artists who made jewellery to go with it. And we had a singer and we had the Scissor Sisters DJing. So that was my first kind of massive insight to marketing, press, events, campaigns, and it was really exciting. And I was like, okay, this is what I love doing, interacting
Yeah.
with people, being creative. I mean, we were
Mm.
hand sealing the invites with wax with our own logo. It couldn't be
Wow.
more intricate in terms of creativity. And it was very old world money, so they appreciated that kind of hand personalized gesture,
Yeah.
which then opened the doors to doing collaborations with Lord Norman Foster, the architect. I did a
Yeah.
collaboration with Jackie Stewart, Boodles, and Baccarat.
Wow.
So we still have
Wow.
the only
Amazing.
chandelier made out of blue topaz worth £1 million out there.
Wow.
So I didn't just do like small, I did like the super huge opposite events
Yeah.
to gauge traction. We actually had it showcased in Harrods, which is now just down the
Wow.
road from me. So it was massive marketing that I was dealing with, but more from an international aspect. We
Yes.
didn't have to do much. It was more relaying on their teams and their marketing and their press. But it was
Yeah.
amazing insight into the world that I never thought I'd get into. Um,
Yeah.
and I loved,
Yeah.
and I stayed with it for the best part of 8 years. I've been in marketing.
Wow. Wow, and great to kind of have had the insight into other organizations as well through all of those fantastic partnerships and
Yeah,
kind of almost in collaboration with them, you see how marketing works for them and how their different teams operate and what they want to focus on. And I think that always gives you quite a well-rounded approach, having seen different ways of tackling it. But
yeah.
that, I mean, what an exciting entry into the industry and quite the contrast from sort of surveying previously. So you must have really found a love for that creative side, which previously you probably weren't, that connected with in your previous
Yeah,
career.
I mean, quantity surveying, it's about design, it's looking at buildings in a kind of creative way to look at the foundation. I mean, the drawings I had to do for quantity surveying were actually very creative in the first place. There must have
Yes.
been some level of interest in being creative. I just didn't know it would be more using my mind than it would be kind of practical drawing. So I always say
Mm,
there's a difference in creatives. There's kind of like the fun creatives and there's the corporate
mm,
creatives.
mm.
The fun creatives get to do kind of the posts and be on the photo shoots and kind of dress really relaxed and live in a very work from home environment.
Yeah.
I've been in the office every day for the last 10.5 years of my career.
Mm,
I come into work, I've always been in London, done the same commuting, and I've always had to
yes.
have a corporate level kind of hat on, always doing meetings, always presenting, and it's a
Mm,
very different world. I think people
yes.
get confused that, oh, you're in marketing, that must be really fun and relaxed and social. Actually, it's kind of a lot of brain work to look at
Yes.
different solutions and possibilities to do marketing campaigns.
Yes, yes, and it's a term that gets banded around, doesn't it? But it actually to say you work in marketing, it is and it isn't reductive because we can all say we work in marketing, but we know that's so multifaceted, and that can actually mean so many things. It's not enough to just say you work in marketing.
Yeah.
There's so many different verticals within that, and expertise, and there's so many different disciplines that you can kind of specialize in within marketing.
Yeah.
So, if someone says they work in marketing, my first question is, in what? You know, what? Because that's what's interesting. But yeah, no, wow, amazing. And huge. You must have so many stories from those events and those things that you would
Oh
kind of
yeah, I mean,
run to.
I worked in Mayfair for majority of those years, so I stayed with the same company for 10.5 years. So
Wow.
I went from start to finish. I then co-founded a jewellery brand with the Topaz. That's when I first got my official director of marketing and sales role in 2018, and that's when I
Yes.
got to do a whole business 365, learn from start to finish how to launch a product into the UK market. Really hard, I'm not going to lie, it was tough.
Mm,
Sales really hard because it was we were doing the design process through lockdown. Then we were like, oh,
mm,
maybe we'll launch in lockdown because online sales are a boom. And then we
yeah.
realized actually we're selling really high end products. People need to physically see them. It's the same with the
Yes.
whiskey that we're selling. It all kind of has the same audience, the same thinking, but we wanted people to feel the pieces, create a relationship with the pieces. So we waited till 2022 to actually launch and then do events. And I feel like it built a better trust and journey with customers.
Yeah.
But again, it's really hard because everyone assumes, oh, you're in marketing, so you manage the digital or the campaign. But it was also
Mm,
stock inventory. It's also looking at kind of product launches, press launches, copy. Someone said
Absolutely.
to me the other day, "You don't know all the Google ad policies." I was like, "What? Well, why would I? That's not my specialty, you know."
Yeah.
It's assumed that we know everything, and I think
Yeah.
people don't realize there's, as you said, so many different segments into marketing. I mean,
Mm.
I'm focusing on kind of digital campaigns, social media,
Yeah.
but then within that, that has so much more to,
Yes.
unload that I haven't even touched yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that age-old challenge, isn't it? Of kind of, are we going for breadth or are we going for depth in one thing? And I
Yeah,
think the tough thing for marketers these days is as we adapt from, I think many years ago, I think it was quite plausible to have, a marketing manager in a business and be able to kind of cover everything that needed to be covered when everything was a lot more, you know, in-person marketing or when digital didn't really exist essentially, and now that
yeah,
digital does exist, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. There's so many things that we can do, but it's also, it does mean that you can very, very well be an expert social media manager, and that's all you do.
yeah.
And I think that's what people tend to not understand. And yeah, and it's difficult, and like, it makes me laugh about the Google ad policies. I mean, that's a whole world that
I
people
just sat there and I was like,
dedicate
"What? No."
their yeah, and that's again, another huge group of people's full-time commitment. That's what they do day in, day out. But somehow, and I think that that's a big challenge and a big theme from the podcast that I've picked up on, that it is this constant kind of plate spinning, and as the most senior marketing professional in a business, there's almost
Yeah,
that responsibility to do the impossible, which is to kind of be on top of everything as everything evolves at a rate that we just cannot stay on top of it at, and that's really, really difficult. So I guess, and I guess that speaks to your role currently. Marketing director must be extremely busy dealing with kind of everything. Do you want to maybe talk to us a little bit about that? You mentioned kind of being on
yeah,
top
of
of
course.
digital and things
So
like that. What do you
I joined
manage?
this role in February. I actually had to
Hmm.
apply for 900 jobs before I got this one,
Wow.
and everyone's like, "You'll be fine. You've been a director. You've done this many roles. You've got the experience." I did have the experience. The one thing my parents taught me was you must work to get the experience to get somewhere. So I had 10 years of experience, and I had to like interview with social media experts, Google experts, marketing, and either the salaries were grossly inflated because I was
Yeah.
looking at director level, or they were underinflated because they wanted social media and they wanted someone young who could turn business quickly, and if it wasn't successful, then they could kind of move on quite easily without impacting the
Mm,
business. So when this
mm,
opportunity came along, it was like the first time they've ever had in-house marketing. Everything had been outsourced in terms of social media, in terms of PR, copy, paid per click ads, everything outsourced. So they really
wow.
wanted to kind of bring it in, have a voice, have a tone. So I sat here and I thought, yeah, this could be really exciting. I've done everything to death in my old role. I know exactly what's happening. There's nothing new. In terms of the jewellery world, it's the same old. Whereas this was like, okay, it's completely out of my comfort zone, but at the same time, it's a
Mm,
young business. We're only 5 years old. And I do all kind of social media marketing, but I do it from a management perspective. So I plan
yes.
everything 4 weeks in advance. I'm very kind of keen on that, so we can change the topics. But I give it to our
Hmm.
freelancer who can actually do the creatives. So
Yeah.
she sends it to me in advance, and I go, yes, no, that works with the grid, no, it doesn't. And we're always having to change. So when I onboarded here, we had no brand guidelines officially. We had no kind of communication package, how to staff to
Wow.
talk to each other, how to kind of represent our voice across the phone, into emails. It was all starting
Mm,
from scratch, which for me was a
mm.
really bizarre concept because they were like, yeah, we're relying on you for that information. I was like, oh, okay, I've got to kind of put my email shoes on and be really corporate all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a shock, but it's worked. We've got a marketing strategy that's kind of worked for the last, I'd say, 4 months. We are,
Wow.
now gaining natural followers, natural traction, which people say it's a vain figure to look at. But for me, it's a really good sign of success. They're not relying on paid adverts to gain traction. It's genuine interest into the company, and kind
Yes.
of we progressed a lot in the 6 months. Um, and I think it's exciting because we've had a lot of things happen this year. So it always
Yeah.
feels like so much more is being achieved. But for a team of 11, it's amazing what they've achieved in the 5 years. So what we
Mm,
predominantly focus on is whiskey cask investment.
hmm.
So
Okay.
we are wholesalers in casks. This is one of them on the back wall. So we buy
Amazing.
them, we have them in stock, and then people will invest into them for a long-term hold, not short-term.
Mm,
And then the ownership transfers to them, and then they own
mm,
the cask. Because then when they want to exit, we provide a strategy for them. So it's very much an ongoing process. It's not kind of a quick win for the sales team. They have to be on top of the portfolios, they have to manage
mm.
those customers, and now they're actually becoming the face of the business for the first time. So we did the game fair this summer, which is a massive fair for kind of shooting and hunting, and it
Yeah.
was the first time they'd met some of their clients face to face.
Wow.
So it was a
Mm.
massive experience for them that they'd never done. I'm now putting them on live Q&As, which don't get like hundreds of thousands of views, but it's more just the fact they're now people, they're humans.
Yes. Yeah.
One thing I've learned massively over the years: people need people, especially for buying.
Absolutely. Yeah, and those quality interactions are so important as well. I think so often we can get kind of drawn in the wrong direction looking for hundreds of attendees or hundreds of engagements on a post, but actually it's about who those people are. You know, if we're getting 10, 20 really good quality people to a Q&A session, that's
Yeah,
great. And in a way, there's that intimacy to an event that's a little bit smaller as well, doesn't it? It doesn't feel so anonymous. It almost feels like that sort of exclusive members club, almost
it really does.
type
It's a
engagement.
nicer group of people to speak with. Also, you have
Yeah,
time to give one-on-one to. When it's
yeah,
large
yeah.
crowds, which we did, when I did the party at the Natural History Museum, fantastic, 600 people came. But then it was hard to then
Mm,
speak to all those 600 people, to
yes,
introduce yourself, make sure they're all attended to. Whereas a room of 20 people, it's fantastic. You can get numbers, you can show them what you've done, what you worked on, show them the
yeah,
marketing materials you have, and create a real relationship. And that worked with Game Fair. We were really
yeah,
successful. We made our money and then some back for our first face-to-face event, and it proves it's
yeah,
worth it. This is a key
absolutely.
thing you have to invest in. If you invest a small amount, you can have huge effects on the
Yeah.
business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I have to say, huge kudos to you and the business, but particularly to you. It sounds, I understand it's an extremely competitive environment, and to have interviewed that much, I mean, it must have been really
Soul
tough. But
destroyed.
you sounds like you've, yeah, but it sounds like you found a fantastic opportunity and really made an impact in such a short space of time. I wonder if you could share with us, because it's overwhelming, I think, for anyone who comes into that senior marketing position. And as you said, you're saying, where's the brand guideline? Oh, that's for you to come up with. And where's this? Oh, we're hoping you've got the answer to that. That's overwhelming, but also in the same time, it's a joy and a privilege to be able to come up with that yourself. So you're not inheriting somebody else's strategy that you don't really agree with. So I guess what would you say is like your number one takeaway from that you feel made it a success? What tactic did you use, or what did you always keep in mind to try and make sure that you built something that would really be future proofed?
I think it comes down to really regular communication with the senior team. Now, when I say senior team, there's three or four of us.
Yeah.
That's it. We're all the same age. In fact, we're 1 month apart. It's a
Wow, really?
really young owned company. The CEO is 8 months older than me. I turned 35 in October, and the director of sales is 35 a month after me. That is the senior level.
Yeah.
The two major seniors have known each other for 15 years, so really close knit. So we
Yeah.
have regular marketing meetings every week. Every week I send a weekly schedule of what I'm working on, what's processing, and from that I got a good understanding of what they actually want to achieve. And I
Yeah.
got to understand their business goals, because there's goals like we want to move into Dubai, there's going to Europe, and they're massive goals. And kudos to them
Mm,
going, we want to expand internationally. But I'm like, hang on, let's get it right now here, and then you have a
yeah.
great module to then build blocks further down the road.
Yeah.
And it was actually, I didn't bring anything from my past apart from like good communication, partnerships, and great mentoring to give each other. That was like my
Mm,
three key kind of building blocks. And the rest of it was like, you know what, I've seen what they can do. Let's kind of put the pressure on, give them some ownership. And they kind of really run with it. It was actually nice to just start actually from a clean slate.
yeah.
Kind of given, zero budget, just do what you can for what you've got, and then we'll kind of
Yeah.
add funds as you go along. And it's been a
Yeah.
great learning experience, starting from nothing and then having some success. And bringing my old
Yeah.
contacts as well from the old world. We're now
Sure.
collaborating with Jackie Stewart again in September.
Wow.
So it's taking
Wow.
those people I built a relationship previously and then adding them to this industry to see if it works, and
Mm,
it actually has.
yeah.
So partnering has been so much easier than previously doing it a second time round.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you can build up a network and then transfer that across, and great that you were able to kind of come to an industry that yeah, speaks to the industries that you've been involved with previously. I mean, that's great. And sounds like you've got a hugely supportive, fun, and ambitious team, which I think always helps. And it's difficult if you go somewhere and it's the opposite, and everything's quite set in stone and not flexible, and everything feels like an uphill battle. I mean, yes, starting from a clean slate is a little bit overwhelming, but it's also a
Yeah.
great opportunity and amazing, really, that their business got to where it was, even without marketing and just kind of setting itself up, establishing and organically kind of growing in the first initial years. And that I feel like that's always such a positive sign as well when you're taking on the marketing for an organization. If it's organically managed for the
Yeah.
first initial years, there's huge potential there to then capture. So yeah, that sounds amazing, really exciting. And I guess you're still enjoying it, or are you still very much in the like initial stages,
I
getting to grips, or
I feel
you
like
in the
I'm
flow?
still getting to grips with the terms of the whiskey world. There's
Yes.
so much I don't know, and in terms of marketing, I didn't actually qualify marketing in terms of
Mm,
education, so it's all been
mm,
kind of self-taught, self-learn.
mm.
Just in the 6 months I've been here, I've done 3 courses, whether that's with ASA CAP in terms of advertising standards, which there's a lot when it comes to whiskey and
Yes.
alcohol. I didn't
Hmm.
realise to be in adverts, you have to actually look over 25 to be in an alcohol related advert, not just be over 18, but
Really?
look over 25, which is kind of the shopping
Yeah.
guidelines you have, but it actually applies into adverts. So it made us think
Wow.
about, okay, how do we advertise our events that have had 18-year-olds? So it was like a complete scrap. We've now had to change our whole photo campaigns. And it's
Wow.
just little things like that that even I would have never known. But now I've come into this industry, I have to be really careful what we say, do, and act because it has such a massive impact. I didn't
Yeah.
realise how regulated ASA was. They can just remove your posts, they can remove features on influencers' posts as well if you just
Wow.
don't do the right kind of wording, the right campaigning. So we've just had
Mm.
one go live this afternoon with a whiskey influencer with our latest bottle of the collection. And I basically said, I have no holds on what you post. Don't show me this is a gift. Like you completely do whatever you want with it. And then
Yeah.
that allows him to have free reign without, being responsible.
I
Um,
see.
but we
I
trusted
see.
them, so it's actually turned out really well. It's had over 1,000 views in the last hour, so it's exciting because people are like,
Great.
"Oh, what's going on?" Without
Yeah.
having to pay for that, service.
Yeah.
But it is difficult. There's things that I will not
Yeah.
learn in the first year, and I think people need to understand marketing doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 6 months.
Mm.
It doesn't happen in a year. Brands like
Mm.
Nike didn't just have success. It took years and years of them being in certain industries, certain music industries as well, to gain the traction and popularity it
Yeah.
has now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's one of the most important lessons to learn, isn't it? And you kind of learnt that firsthand in your early experience because you're working for brands that had already that built up reputation and then were able to leverage that for further success. But actually, you need that first, especially I suppose in the sort of B2C premium
Yeah.
luxury sector. That is just so important. And yeah, I guess then your strategies are quite long-term focused, and that can be difficult sometimes because we're always asked to demonstrate an impact and an attribution to what we're doing, and that's the whole difficult thing about being in marketing. And we have discussed that time and time again on the podcast. And when I ask people, what's if you had a magic wand, what's the one thing you would change? Most people, a lot of people tend to say, I wish it was easier to attribute success, or I wish we had some metric that could crystal ball our long-term activities now to and connect them to something positive in the future. And I
Yeah.
guess that's a challenge that we all share. You probably share,
For
chip away at
sure. I
things,
mean,
but
for me, it's always sales based. It's like, how can we lead that
yeah.
your campaign has led to sales? And it's hard to track because we've got
Mm,
just as a number out there, we've got 89 campaigns currently running out there, whether it's Google ads, whether it's social media, whether
wow.
it's pay per click. I have to make sure the disclaimers are located on each one, that the clicks on the right area of the advert on different phone screens, and just that alone could be a full-time job. And then I've got to track to make sure it goes into HubSpot and the sales are then transferred. That's one
Yeah.
hat of my day to day. Then I've got to look at
Mm,
kind of press engagement. How do you track press engagement? And it's all these things that we spent money on that I've got to make sure lead to sales. And I think
yeah.
there's always that added pressure. It's like, okay, you're not just running or doing the word of mouth or brand awareness or brand visibility. It's okay, how do you track sales? And I think that's the one thing that's missing from kind of
Mm,
digital marketing. Yeah, there is different ways you can do it with adding a kind of link at the end with a word, and then you can go, oh, they've come from that particular link. But in terms
mm,
of traditional publishing, you have no way of working out if sales come from that magazine article or an online article,
yeah.
and if it's led to success. And that is the hardest part, because I know most CEOs always go, well, why should I do that if there's no actual proven success from
Mm,
a campaign? As nice as
mm,
it looks in a
mm.
magazine, you can't prove the success of that magazine. It's a very slow burn, but the market still demands that kind of traditional publication marketing. So
Yeah,
it's a really hard
absolutely.
balance in terms of
Yeah.
marketing digital.
It is. And there is, often people say, or maybe, with AI, embedded AI inside the platforms that we're using, and, maybe they'll become a better solution, a better dashboard where we can see clearer metrics, clearer attribution. But I do just think that forever there will be an element of we just don't know. You will never be able to know what's gone on
No.
in somebody's mind. That's the fascination I think that we all share with marketing. It's that great kind of mystery of what goes on in the buyer's head. They maybe read the magazine, then they've forgotten about us for 2 months. There's something random that they pass, sparks us in their memory, and then they want to buy some whiskey. And you think, how can we get a better understanding of that? I guess it's talking to our customers, understanding them, but that's difficult to do. That's not as easy. We can't just grab them all in a room and ask them 100 questions. So I think that's really difficult. That is. And I think over time working for a brand, you end up building a picture, but there's still, sometimes things can go really well and we're left thinking, we don't really know why. Why has
Yeah,
this one thing resonated? And that's almost as frustrating as when something doesn't work. So yeah, it is difficult.
it is
I don't
difficult.
know.
And for one aspect, for example, we do paid per click ads because it
Mm,
reaches a
mm,
certain demographic. Now that
mm,
hasn't worked for a while, and they're like, but it worked 2 years ago. I'm like, but do you understand? Algorithms change so dramatically. You
mm.
can't say what was working 2 years ago is definitely going to work now. And I think
Yeah,
that's the hard barrier to break between marketing and non-marketing professionals. There's
yes.
certain things you have to say it's not working because it's not working. You have to read, change your audience, your demographics, the type of money you're spending, the type of placements you're doing. And until
Mm,
it successfully works, it's a hard kind of question and beg to be like, if we just try something new, we might see success in a different way. And that's the hard task. I mean, I
mm.
had the pleasure of sitting with Investec while we were at Game Fair, and he said it took them 2 years
Wow.
to convert some of their marketing routes. And he was like, good luck to you. I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
He was like, because it's a trust building exercise within your team because they
Mm,
don't know marketing. So, for all you know, you could be talking absolute gibberish. But
yeah.
because we have seen it for a while, especially I've seen the increase in social media in my lifetime, being a millennial. I mean,
Mm,
I'm the perfect category for an Instagram sale. I see something on Instagram, don't normally check it, and it's in my cart, and I'm thinking, God, it's going to be delivered to my house. And
yeah.
then people say to me, that's drop shipping. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I feel really bad for it. But because I've been
Yeah.
engaged in that direct
Mm,
moment, I've then brought
mm,
it. Whereas I
yeah.
know that the audience I'm dealing with, that's not going to happen with them. They need the trust
Mm,
building exercise. And that is what I need to kind of really perfect because that takes time.
yeah.
Ultra high net worths are not easy. They don't communicate in the same way. They don't sit in discussions in the same way.
Mm,
And I had this firsthand with my previous CEO. He was a YPO member, a Davos member. So he
mm,
really sat in circles that you couldn't, normally comprehend to be in. And when they were
yeah.
talking about forex exchange, it was kind of a text between friends, not talking to a bank or looking online. It was a quick WhatsApp, and they'd come up with an answer, the best
Yeah.
forex company. Whereas you don't get that, in today's world.
No.
Everyone relies on Google for an answer or the internet or some source of, online searching, but this world
Mm.
works very differently, and that's the harder kind of communication you need to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that because that really does shine a light on kind of how you get under or get to know the profile of the people that your audience are made up of. And I think sometimes we don't do a good enough job of that. And like you're saying, that kind of using people who you know, actual real humans, as
Yeah.
almost like a model for the personas that you're marketing to in your organization, I think is really interesting. You know, what would David or Sophie or who, you know,
Yeah,
these real
you
people
need
that
real
we
life
think about.
personas to work with this
Yeah,
situation. And I always said,
yeah.
people were like, oh, why whiskey? I was like, actually, it's the same thing. Gemstones,
Mm,
jewellery. I mean, we were buying jewellery and gemstones in like bags. I mean, like tens of hundreds of bags. We were talking about 18,000 bags to stock take a year. I mean,
wow.
we're talking about big sales. So when they were like, oh, are you sure you'll be able to sell a cast for 3,000? I was like, yeah. I was like,
Yeah,
I've been
no
to Faye Shilston
problem.
and sold like £1 million
Yeah,
worth of gemstones. I was like, it's the same thing. It's a widget at the end of the day.
yeah.
People forget. I think everyone, and this is not a slant on any brands, I think everyone thinks their product's special, but at the end of the day, it's a
Mm,
widget and it's how you sell it and how you create a USP around it and the branding, then you should be
mm,
fine. If you can sell luxury, you should be able to sell luxury in any market. You just need to understand that person and their thought process and how they're going to buy. And that's,
yeah.
I always find the most difficult journey. But once you get it right, it's super satisfying because then it's enjoyable when you get the
Mm.
rewards.
Yeah, how interesting. Do you know, I don't think we've had anybody from, you know, particularly from the luxury market. And I think that it is a whole new level of marketing. It is,
Yeah.
like you say, it's actually, we always say that marketing is not about the product or the service, but in luxury, it's really not. And that is, you know, really an interesting mindset, and something we probably don't have enough time to kind of get into the depths of today. But I'm sure that that's something that I'm sure there's lots of interesting books to read on, and I'm sure you could share more about that. Maybe we'll have to do an episode too. Um, but no, so profiles of personas, definitely. I mean, we've talked about attribution there being a challenge. Do you see anything else kind of, you know, in your field of vision? What else do you see as a big challenge for marketers, or just for yourself? Like that could either be something generally for all of us as
Yeah.
marketers, or within your industry, or just something that really annoys you. That's a challenge. What comes up
I
for you?
personally don't think enough people make the most of podcasts and
Mm-hmm.
audio. I actually think there's going to be an increase in the next 12 months of 89% of people investing into podcasts and audios. I know
Mm-hmm.
personally, I'd love to do more as a business. We've just started tapping into it, and we might actually
Yeah.
start running ourselves. Our own podcast, just because it
Yeah.
gives time to people to educate. You can only educate so much in a social media post. You can only
Yeah.
educate so much in an event, or people need to learn more. And I've learned that according to online shoppers, they need at least 3 to 5 content touch points before they even want to
Mm,
engage. So we
yeah.
do like a welcome newsletter. So if you engage on a Friday and you think, oh God, they're not going to get back to us till Monday. Well, we have a welcome email which sends 3 emails. Everyone thinks, oh, that's a lot, but it's not. It's about the team, it's about the CEO, and it's about why come and invest with us. So it gives them a
Yeah.
real rounded information before they've even got a phone call from one of our portfolio managers. So it's kind of hit
Mm,
home to them, oh, yes, Whiskey 1901, I've seen emails. And it's same as you said, they've had that kind of branding kind of subtly put in their mind. They've read about it.
yes.
And I think information's key. I don't think enough brands can educate themselves enough. So we
Mm,
have a motto, we educate ourselves before we educate others. And I think that's a really
love it.
key life lesson, because there's no point me sitting here and going, yeah, I know about marketing and yeah, I know about whiskey, but I've actually done my research, I've done my education. I
Yeah.
did a HubSpot course the other day. It took me 5 hours, and I'm sure it shouldn't have taken that long. But I write everything down from scratch and
Yeah.
rewrite notes as to how I learned at university. And my son looked at me and goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "This is how I learn. I have to write everything
Yeah.
down." But I don't think enough people educate themselves in their industry, and I think it's really key because
Yes.
there's so much to learn. Digital marketing, which went all into advertising and email campaigns and SEOs, and now I'm looking at my kind of blogs that we write on the PR company. I'm like, no, you shouldn't have this many keywords, and you actually should rein it in a bit more. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, where did you learn this from? I was like, oh, I did a course. And I
Yeah.
think marketers struggle to find that information. I think there's a
Mm,
lot of kind of information online, but doesn't relate to you so kind of obviously.
yeah.
Um, Going to events now, I have been given the task that I take a portfolio manager, and it has nothing to do with the events I go to in the marketing world. They have to come with me now to every event I go to. I kind of do a lucky dip and say, who wants to come to this AI marketing network event? And it's
Yeah.
nothing to do with them. It's they have to actually learn what we're doing, how we're thinking as a business.
Mm,
And it's a great insight for both sides. But you laugh about AI. I get so many invites now to go to AI marketing decision events,
yeah.
and I have no idea how AI is going to take over our lives. It's something that
Yeah.
I'm going to have to learn,
Mm,
because it'll be a way of
mm,
life.
mm,
Collaborations, partnerships, I think is so key. So in my
mm,
previous life, I worked with a charitable trust for 10.5 years as part of their side
mhm.
business. They always gave back to charity, and I think it's so key. If you're not
Yeah.
doing partnerships with a purpose, don't bother. In my regards, if you're not giving back in some way, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So we did the collaboration with Jackie Stewart, which is happening in September, and we actually donated a whole bottle of whiskey, which retails at £1,300 for free to
Wow.
go in a silent auction.
Yeah.
It's about giving back. He can afford the bottle. He doesn't need the charitable stuff, but actually, it's doing good. And I don't think enough brands do it with genuine purpose. I think a lot
Yeah.
do it because it's like corporate social responsibility, tick, done.
Mm,
But
mm.
there's no purpose behind it. Where we actually, I think, genuinely should do is going into next year have marketing with that kind of head on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. People are just too discerning to do corporate social responsibility as a tick box exercise. That just does not wash anymore.
No,
I wish it never did, but I think there was an element of that when it was kind of a new thing, a buzzword that was, on all of our to-do lists. And actually now, that it has to be authentic. People just see through it.
oh god, yeah,
Consumers are not at all stupid. We are, all the information's out there. There's so much transparency between consumers and brands, and so you have to do it with integrity. And that it sounds fantastic what you're doing, and I couldn't agree more. I think we all should contribute to a purpose that's greater than us, and
yeah.
as a brand we have the power to do that. So why don't we? Why don't we channel a little bit of the energy into that? Um,
It's not always costly. I think that's what people think. So,
yes,
I mean, I'm
exactly.
I'm the most cynic person in the world. I think it's probably what we've grown up with, given what all the
Mm,
events we've gone through in our small lives.
mm,
But there's a big celebrity that brought out a whiskey brand the other week, and they said it's because of this relation and this relation. It's like, well, actually, your partner also has a massive link into the alcohol world. You're super
mm.
successful as a couple. I think it's quite easy to see why you've done it because you know that
Yeah,
actually the business is going to be successful no matter what you touch.
yeah.
And I read through it straight away. I was like, yeah, this is not the reason why you launched. This is actually the reason because you know it's going to bring money in. It's another source of income.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes the transparency isn't there, which is really
Mm,
why we have to make sure we do it properly on this side because,
mm,
yeah, people can see through it quite quickly when it comes
yeah.
to money and investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially those of us that work in marketing. I feel like we almost have the night vision goggles, don't we? We see right through
Yeah.
everything. Although having said that, I always make the joke that I am the marketer who can be sold to just so easily. I'll, like you said about
Same.
the Instagram ads, I'll see something and I think, oh, that looks good. And I
I'm like,
catch
oh God.
myself sometimes thinking, Sophie, come on, you literally see the other side of this. So sometimes I do have to rein it in a little bit. But I also, and I can't move on from without touching on the point of learning because I think what's come across so much in our conversation is, I love the way that you're clearly being so successful in everything you're doing, but still with this real awareness of the fact that, a very small section of the world of marketing. And I think
Yeah.
that that's such a great place to be in and something that should really reassure anybody who's listening. Because I think sometimes people come onto the podcast and probably sit in their senior marketing roles and think, oh, people think I know everything, but I don't.
Yeah.
And actually, that it's kind of just okay to say, yeah, that is the case, and that's the case for everybody because not nobody knows everything to do with AI, nobody knows everything to do with HubSpot or social media or anything like that. But instead of sort of worrying about it, there's so many courses out there. Just commit that 5 hours, like you said. And I appreciate that's hard because we're all so busy, but you've just got to kind of start taking the steps, haven't you? There's so
Yeah.
much out there in terms of content, learning, and I think you make a good point that it's almost we can dabble in it, but by doing a quick Google and trying to quick fire learn some SEO tips or quick fire learn about AI, it doesn't really work. You've got to go
No.
and do something that is thorough and really teaches you about something from the beginning. And I agree. I don't think enough people continue to do that in their marketing careers and
No, I
then
think they
feel,
kind of get that goal, and I have seen success happen by chance in marketing.
mm,
They've
yeah,
happened to be got the job, and they've happened to progress because they've got on well. And I sit there thinking, oh my God, how have they done that? I've had people far younger than me on far greater salaries in the marketing world, and I think bloody hell, I'm doing something wrong here. But I
mm,
actually think it's actually due to hard work I've got to this point, and I'm kind of really
yeah,
proud of myself that I've had to kind of really start from the bottom to get to this
mm,
point.
mm,
My mum always keeps saying, "And you're in a really senior role," and am I? And I don't feel like that. It's like, say you're a
yeah,
director, at 34, that's really kind of like really exciting for you. Kind of the world is your oyster,
yeah,
and I think it is down to self education. Like I did a course on
mm,
Later, which is the scheduling platform. Again, I
yes,
thought it'd be really easy. It was something like a 3 hour course, and it took me 2 nights to study because again I was writing everything down. But I was
mm,
learning something new that I'd never known about the whole influencer side of it. Again, I
mm,
hadn't thought about you can actually take influencers' campaigns and put it into your own media source. And
yeah,
I got a bit sick to death of learning over the same points, but it was like actually there was quizzes all the way through it. And then when
yeah,
I passed, I was like, oh, I've actually learned something on my own merits. And everyone's like,
mm,
you're going to have to get a certificate wall soon. And I actually print them all out. I post them on my LinkedIn, and I'm really proud.
yeah.
People must think, God, you're a bit old to be boasting about your certificates, but I'm really proud to put them online and share that I've, learned something new today.
Absolutely. And I mean the proof is in the pudding, as you said, director 34, that doesn't happen by chance. So yeah, honestly, really inspiring to hear about that. And I think I often think about it as if we're in like an imaginary race, and it's hard because you don't know what others who maybe are going for the next job you're going to be going for are doing right now.
Yeah,
But the best thing that you can do is keep moving, keep the momentum going. If you're doing a course and they're not doing a course, you're one step ahead. And I don't mean that in a kind of toxic competitive sense. I just mean in a sense of keeping up with the trends and keeping up with
yeah,
the technology. Because otherwise, 10 years' time, we all find ourselves sat at the computer thinking, I have no idea about all of this because I didn't read about AI, I didn't read about HubSpot. And so, yes, it is a little bit intimidating, the kind of the stream of knowledge that we have
yeah.
to continue to keep up with. But yeah, I definitely feel inspired by you and the way that you kind of attack self-development to continue keeping up with all that stuff because it's so important and it gives you the edge, right?
It really does, and I think if you look at, for example, Ryanair and Currys that literally jump
Mm,
on social media trends, I can't jump on that because we're a serious finance investment company. I'd love to roll
yeah.
over the floor and splash water into myself and walk into a store. It doesn't work the same way, so I have to learn in
Mm,
a very different way how to be creative, and
mm,
that does require some level of investigation, education, and just
mm,
being in touch with this industry. It's like I said, it's a very deep pool, the whiskey world, and
yeah.
something that I have to keep learning probably for several years. I mean, the CEO's been
Mm.
doing this for 15 years and got to this point, and I'm in 7 months into this, so it's a very long road ahead, but I'm willing to kind of stick to it and see if I can do another 10 and a half years in the industry. I
Yeah,
don't do
yeah,
things by half, so hopefully
yeah.
here for the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we watch and kind of admire from afar. I'm sure you'll have got some new followers from this, and if you do launch a podcast, some listeners for the first few episodes. So yeah, no, it's fascinating to hear, and I always love hearing how people attack marketing and what you prioritize. And yeah, it's really inspiring to hear about the learning and how you've just come into a new industry and thriving and setting things up and making progress for the organization from really a standing start. So yeah, that sounds fantastic. And what about the next 12 months for you and Whiskey 1901? What's kind of on the to-do list? What are you guys focusing on
So the
marketing
to-do
wise?
list for the next 12 months is do far more events. I think that's been
Okay.
proven winner for us. So that's very
Mhm.
exciting. We're looking at doing Game Fair again, which is in Ragley
Mhm.
Hall. We're looking at doing Burley Horse Trials, Lapada, which
Mhm.
is a massive art fair,
Mm.
and just being more present in person. I think that's so key. The team will develop far quicker in terms of how
Yeah.
they then react from in person to the phone. They have the rapport with clients. we're going to be launching more bottles of the collection. So by 2030, we want 10. We've got one, and it's 2024. So we're
Wow.
not slowing down anytime soon. We've got another two
Mm.
ready to go. We are onboarding a brand ambassador. We have a sports endorsement. So I think
Wow.
it's about to kind of slowly speed up. I feel like the last
Mm.
6 months I haven't had much sleep because it's been busy one stop after the other.
Yeah.
In my previous role we did things, but it was over years. This I feel like a lot's happening now because
Mm.
traction is gaining naturally. It's not
Mm.
forced. So when there is genuine interest, I have to react. I have to recreate. We are going through a whole rebranding ourselves because I just feel like it's important. We've used a lot of stock imagery previously. I've
Mhm.
now changed that. I've got, photographers that do portrait galleries,
Mhm.
that create something with a value and a purpose.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it should be an exciting 12 months ahead. There could be multiple events, more success. We could have our office in Edinburgh, which we're looking to have. So,
Oh,
Scottish
amazing.
base. But yeah, we do 4 whiskey tastings a year, 2 in London, 2 in Scotland. So it's just kind of
Mm.
keep that momentum going while the business is kind of having a good 5 year success. We want to, it's a very slow burn, but by the end of next year, we want to have 5,000 followers. And people might go, oh, that's really low. I'm like, but for us, it's really big to kind of double what
Yeah.
we're doing at the rate. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a slow but steady kind of growth of success for us for the next kind of 18 months.
Wow, it couldn't sound more exciting, honestly. I think, the whole organization sounds like it's doing really, really well. And with you kind of at the helm of marketing, I'm sure that things will, yeah, go from strength to strength. And I'll certainly be keeping an eye. And, events always fantastic and getting the word out there. And going back to that theme of trust, like you said at the beginning, kind of
Yeah.
really developing that. That's not something that comes overnight. People are discerning, as we've said. People want to establish that genuine kind of relationship with the brand and really kind of see if you stand the test of time. And
100%. It's
and
it's
I think,
so important to
yeah.
be regulated and educated in our
Mm,
environment, and people will scrupulate you. It's just how the market is. There's other
mm,
competitors, and we just have to stay on top of it in terms of what we're
yeah.
producing. And that is the harder task, but I think we'll get there in the end.
Yes, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. I think you're already so close, so doing so well with initial goals that seem to have been set out, and it seems that kind of you and your team are really kind of a tour de force. So yeah, we're really excited to see about that. Um, I'm gonna have to end the episode, Faye. We've chatted for already so long, but I feel like there's so much that we could dive into. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. It's been really amazing to picture your journey and hear about everything that you did, from chandeliers to now whiskey events and influencers. So yeah, hugely appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for sharing, and best of luck with everything.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and it's been great talking to you and just getting my word out there. It's a difficult thing to speak to other people within the industry, so thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem at all. Anytime, anytime. All right, have a great week, Faye.
You too.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye. Bye bye.